Yo, peace and black power. It's your brother knowledgebornallah. Do Knowledge Radio. The place where knowledge is born.
Knowledge Radio.
This is 3K.
Think tank.
This is 3K.
Hey.
This is 3K.
I swear that knowledge is born. It's where I swear that knowledge is born. It's where I swear that knowledge is born. It's where I swear that knowledge is born. Who ducked, who down, return fire. We're the warriors, the healers, enlighteners, enlighten us. I'm tired of the same old, that game old with an upgrade. I'm a sunbathe in the sun rays while my guns blaze and they complain. Devil, my level not attainable. My metal, not malleable. I'm a man, didn't need that manual. Reparations is incalculable. Yeah, we wanted in blood, dead in the begging, head in the beheading, metal to the meddling. Members is aggressive, getting to the Armageddon. Karma, seem calmer when it comes to retribution. Catalyst in my clips and I use them on traitors and haters and the ones that spread confusion. Cause the devil's playground wasn't built for our amusement. Hey, meet me at the guard hour. Hey, in these strange days, you gon' need a strong counter. Spin like Beyblade. Impenetrable armor, Orient aura. This story, this saga get gory before it get calmer. Keep holding that revolutionary posture. 85 gon' dip and dodger, but when they get monster, they turn into MC like earrings and become door knockers. I'm irate, they pirate the culture, send them to Davy Jones' locker. It's okay. Let them think that you lost it. Be patient, this type of thing you can't force it. Play possum, but not know out the road. And they can't comprehend cause the language is coded. We plan ideas and we plan explosives. Make your pockets go from more bits or more bread. The portal done open, they can't close it. You ain't got a sideline, you can cause more risk. No set birth date, no Dorian Gray portraits. It's about to get ugly and these devils can't forfeit ancestral memories, so no, I won't forget. What we building is an impenetrable fortress for sure. Every show is just like a core ship, and my flow for sure tighter than your gal's corset. It's okay. We are the source, you can't outsource it. Even Spartans don't want no parts, Neff. What do you know? Before you know it, 3,000 wild Africans at your doorstep. Hey, meet me at the guard hour. Hey, in these strange days, you gon' need a strong counter. Spin like Beyblade. No, we will not cower while the rest they play safe. We will move with God's power. This is not for play. Honor my ancestors, play the Ori day. Peace to you, loved ones, stay dangerous and stay safe. AKAs and AKs coming to make their caves cave. Wreck the race like take case, stay dangerous and stay safe.
Alright, peace and black power family. Welcome to another episode of Do Knowledge Radio. Place where knowledge is born. This is your host, knowledgebornallah, here in ode and in homage to the mother of all living, our divine mother of God, the Afrikan woman. So we're here to pay homage and ode. Today we're here to celebrate, we're here to honor, we're here to uplift, we're here to restore the dignity and the honor that is associated with African life via our African vehicle, our African manifestor, our African generator, our African motivator, the Afrikan woman, God herself. So we're here, share some thoughts and some ideas, but before I get into that, I'm going to play a clip from one of our African warriors and get into that commentary. But before I do that, quick admin, we are still raising funds for our 3K initiative. Let me pull that up right quick. Forget to do this when I'm live most of the time, so we're here looking to raise 3K for 3K. So y'all see it. It's still about $1,600 shy of our goal. So you can either hit the GoFundMe link or via Cash App or PayPal. PayPal is paypal.me/Through the Knowledge Radio or Cash App $knowledgebornallah. So put that link, put those links in the description and YouTube for you to be able to participate and help us reach our goals. So just put that in there really quick. Hashtag 3K campaign here, so we know what's going on, why the funds are being raised for our outreach work in the community. Help to put together a long-term contingency for our community to support Through the Knowledge Radio, putting that here as well. Via Cash App or PayPal. Put these links in there really quick before we get into the subject matter. I have to remind myself sometimes to do that. Those links are in the chat. So for our long-term sustainability operations in the community with our youth, with our with our youth, with the homeless that we're working with. Y'all see the changes in the temperature, the frigid changes in the temperature in your environment, depending on where you are. We're still feeding children 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, in the community. And during this time, we usually do an extra push so we can get coats, so we can get hats, so we can get gloves, so we can get boots, and feed and give gifts and all kinds of things. So anything that you can do in this particular time will help those efforts, help us with these sustainability, long-term sustainability efforts. Again, we're helping children from the ages 7 to 18 and from the ages of 19 to 35. So we have average youth programs working with the youth between the ages of 7 to 18, and then strategic planning mechanisms from the ages of 19 to 35. So again, the reason to raise this goal is so we can offer these services free of charge with no burden to the family or burden to the individual. We're here to help, we're here to collaborate, we're here to motivate and do what we need to do. So our Cash App, PayPal, or the GoFundMe, as you see on the screen, those links are in the chat on YouTube. So y'all can help us in that way. So I want to play this clip from our African warrior mother. We love her with all our heart and spirit. Mama Yah Baruti, the wife of our Baba Baruti, Akaben House, Akaben Institute's own, the African warrior mother, explaining some of the things that went on her life that affect us all. So I think this is beautiful and a beautiful segue to get into this ode to the African mother, the African woman, the mother of all living, God herself. So 1 second.
Hotel, everybody, BB for Hodier, African Liberation. I want to thank everybody for coming to the motherhood class. This is what happens when you live in the West. Okay, so our daughter wasn't planned, and we're both in grad school. But I do have my Western plan. My focus is, of course, our daughter was well taken care of. In fact, we let her go to a preschool for a minute, and the teacher and it was part-time. The teacher was stuttering, and she came home trying to stutter. So that was only for a minute. But Baba and I, both in school, so we literally did this. We divided the day in 12-hour shifts. So 12 hours of the day, I was responsible for. That gave him time to do his graduate work and vice versa. Now, but because I was not in my African mind, even though I knew, and I took for granted. Remember, my grandparents have 20 children. My aunt, one of them has 13 children, 6, 8, people have children. My mother had a small family of 4. So I took it for granted, I need to do this, need to finish this degree, I'll have children later. Now, to Baba's credit, by the time our daughter was 4, and that would have been an ideal time, and I've recently heard in Nigeria, one of my friends who goes there regularly said they space the children at least 3 and 4 years apart. But anyway, that would have been ideal, but I hadn't finished my program, and when you don't get married the right way, I wasn't secure in the marriage. And I'm thinking, this is not looking good here. And remember, my mom was twice divorced. So really, I'm operating, well, because Baba's like, okay, it's now or never. And I'm like, okay, that might be never to myself. It might be never for you. However, it's probably going to be husband number 2. And I'll do, have a set of children later. But in the West, sometimes delay ends up being, so you have one plan, but 20/20 hindsight, when you get into your African mind, once our daughter was born, the number one priority, she was our number one priority from the perspective of her being cared for and loved. But part of that should have been, she needed siblings. Now, I was not worried about that because there were 2 other black graduate families right on our floor, so she had playmates. So I'm not thinking, but you're not, when you're not thinking in your African, your thinking is confused. But needless to say, so we did not set out saying, oh, we want one child. In fact, I recommend that people, unless you've been given spiritual guidance that you shouldn't have more than one, that ideally children need siblings. And it's hard on that child. So even though our child, she's social butterfly, so whenever she's in school, so she's always playmates. However, those children go home and she comes home to the adults and there are no children there. And an additional problem to that is then, of course, mommy, tries to be playmate, but then for a little child, then they think of you as play. Now hold up, wait a minute, my sister, mommy plays with you, but I'm not really, you have to put those, boundaries there. But definitely, so I am not happy with my story, but I think and I hope I share it with people to try to prevent other women from not following that mistake. Let let me quickly go through some notes. My blessings of motherhood. If for any of my sisters out there who may question whether they want children, of course, you know our beliefs, children are the Creator's reward, so that's a given. So to be blessed, and in a world where many women cannot have children, it is a reward to be a mother. And for our daughter in particular, it was her conception that literally brought Rudy and I to marriage, and it was a major factor in our staying married. And unlike in the West, you know, Mama, they say you shouldn't stay together for the children. I've come to believe, wait a minute, what else? That's from the African tradition. You get together, bring families together to have children. Why not stay together for the children? And I really believe if you, and this is our story, if you, in our case, even though I believed in divorce, I think the ancestors allowed me to see my beautiful little baby girl frowning like a 29-year-old man, her father, and that scared me. And yes, because I'm like, oh, she has her father's spirit. I am not going to be able to, and I mean, this is for real. I'm not going to be able to raise her by myself because I'm not that strong, which her father is. And that's she needed us both, but she needed the discipline of her father. So that was a reason to stay together. So that's about 18 years. When you're there, hey, hang tough. You can have a 20th anniversary party celebration, and we did. And by that time, when they're grown and you see sometimes they're making their own decisions, and what you think and feel are very insignificant, the spouse that you question would you stay with is looking better all the time. He might be more reliable. I don't know if I'm going to be able to rely on her to be at my side through thick and thin. And then, you know, then the grandchildren come, and Mama, you know, how wonderful, yes, how wonderful that is. And of course, you know, when they have that first grandchild, they present the grandchild to you, and they think they can do, we give you a child, and they feel they can do no wrong. You should, no complaints whatsoever. We have given you a grandchild. Okay, but I mean, definitely, it's a reason to stay there. And then I'm definitely enjoying and even trying to take care of babies. Okay, I got diapers going and Rudy! So yes, he's still having to, okay, yes, we got to do this together. And one of my favorite memories of our first grandchild, Rudy seeing the baby for the first time, and his back, he has back issues. His back is killing him. So he asked me for some Tylenol. So I'm thinking I'm going to hand him Tylenol and water, and just for a minute, because I already held the baby and all of that. So he's going to be over there, and I'm going to get the baby a second time, just for a minute. And no, he sits there, opens his mouth. I'm putting Tylenol in his, and he has Jalea against his chest, and that's one of my favorite memories of Rudy, and that's as grandparents, you know. But anyway, so you get to enjoy grandparenthood together. But so definitely, she was a reason for our marriage, reason for our staying married. Through her, we needed an education for her, and we did not want her to be miseducated. Thus, in our search, we found an Afrikan-centered school in Chicago, a new concept. Her first school, and that introduced us to the African way. And through them, when we're about to move to Atlanta, so we know about CB, Black Independent Schools, in their directory, we found there was an Afrikan-centered school in Atlanta. So when we moved to Atlanta already, there's an Afrikan-centered school for her. We found the African community village here. All of that resulting from this unplanned child, the blessings that come. And when you're trying to plan your life according to Western norms, missed a very important part of my story. Being raised by my mother and the women of that, black women of that time, I was taught you never have an abortion. And at this time, because our daughters born in 85. So black women are having abortions. But for me, that was not an option. It wasn't a thought. It was not an option, and it wouldn't have mattered what if he didn't want to get married. And you hear the stories of the man handing over money. That wasn't an option, because what was an option, and one thing about old school black mothers, you can always come home. So I would have been able to come home, no problem, and my mother would have helped me as well as the rest of my family village. But one of the best things she taught me, so whereas some women have to deliberate, and if we listen to the Alice Walkers and all these black feminists, that's not it. That's not African. That's not us. We value life, and people went to great extents, you know, if they couldn't have children, in an effort to have children. So that was a major blessing. So even though I wasn't obedient in all matters, because if I had been obedient, I would have waited till I got married and I would have had all of that going on. Okay, but through the one child that we had, when we needed an Afrikan-centered high school for her, there wasn't one in our area, we decided to homeschool her, which turned into, it was not the plan, Afrikan Institute, 15 years ago, this child. While we're doing Afrikan Institute, Brother Baruti, when you're teaching, it can be difficult to have time to write. Brother Baruti writes, well, he had written a book on chess, but what's the second book? Excuses, yes, Excuses, but he writes that book, and from that point forward, the books have been flowing, so that now he has 19 books, and not to mention the videos and, you know, the work that is being done. All of that can trace back to this child that we did not abort, that we were not excited about, believe you me. But you know, you don't, and if she was indeed and is a reward, and now, you know, has given us so, and she embraces the notion of family and is raising the children, and we've been blessed through the additional community sons and daughters. So even though we only had one child, we have been very blessed that, and some of you sitting in the audience, we have these grown children, and we didn't have to go through pregnancy, labor, childbirth, and, you know, they bring us joy, and they help us do our work. You know, just a beautiful thing.
The black woman's alive. The black woman's alive. The black woman's alive. The black woman's alive.
Return the fugitives from American justice, including the return of the cop killer, Joanne Chesimard.
Flashback to the Turnpike 73. Cop shot on the floor. Who's the culprit aside of Shakur? First they attacked the Panthers. They dropped COINTELPRO papers with all these questions and then subtract the answers. These females think they got it hard and result of dancing. Imagine being America's most wanted like Charles Manson. The epitome of a goddess, facing a murder rap, railroaded on all the charges. First they took her freedom in a hospital, shot up, still bleeding. Took her to the precinct for a lineup. Your Honor, wasn't interested in the facts, just the fact that the officer was white and she was black. When the trial was a rap, she was pregnant by a co-defendant. They put the gun to her stomach while a baby in it. Don't need another leader, they ain't wanna feed her, hoping she miscarried. That was the pig's manners. All along she had another plan, showed the strength of a queen that's from the motherland. All praises, she ended up in Cuba, no extradition. Black woman, you need to listen. The black woman's alive.
The black woman is God. She birthed man like blackness through the stars. When the creator made her, a portal opened in time. Now we manifest reality through a womb that's divine. It was prophesied that birth she'd be a leader. Umbilical, wrapped around her neck, call her Nzinga. Queen of Ndoga, queen of Matamba, kingdom of Mbundu, people of Angola. Ruler like a father, she serious with the combat. Slavery was poppin', she made the Portuguese fall back. Play it like she kiddin', she bring it to where you all at. Turned the servant into a throne so she could talk facts. Pressure made her brother commit suicide. That's when she stepped up like it's do or die. Whatever to unify, never deal with cowards do. Mover of the generals, the black woman is powerful.
Yeah. The black woman's alive. The black woman's alive. The black woman's alive. The queen. The black woman's alive. The black woman's alive. The black woman's alive. Yeah. The black woman's alive. The black woman's alive. The black woman's alive.
Now, I'm sure that most of you know the old story about the astronaut
The black woman's alive.
who went far out into space and was asked on his return whether he had been to heaven and seen God. And he said yes. And so they said to him, well, what about God? And he said, she is black.
All right. Get into my subject, read a little bit, and explain a little bit. I just want y'all to see these African mothers, these mothers of God, these motivators, these manifestors, these guardians of the invisible and the seen world. Truly, I just want y'all to see them. Some of them are our ancestors and some of them are our elders. We celebrate those mothers of all living, mothers of all of the worlds. The mother of God. There is no God without her. She births God into existence. So let me just read very quickly. I aligned myself with the revolution, so I had to mention that I had no time for those who seem as if they came across the word revolutionary in the dictionary and decided, oh, for the moment, this sounds like a cool thing to be. The revolutionary state is beyond temporary. You need to wake your asses up and read our people's history. No more turning our heads from the truth so much until our necks get tired. No more sliding ass backwards down a slide into a puddle of lies into which we must drown in. No more blissful ignorance. No more shouting for justice with just a whisper. We can no longer be a bunch of empty minds living in critical times, refusing to recognize real lives. And that was from Queen Jasira. Given the state of the African nation, Africans need identities which are extreme, real, effective warriorhood, calls for frontline minds and personalities which are knowledgeably and confidently aligned with the revolution. And reflective to those Negroes and lost souls, beingness requires what most would menticide misnomer extreme. However, it is not extreme. It is the warrior's norm to know who they who they are historically, and we are historically to know what they have done and continue to do to us in the world. and what we must do to stop and reverse this psychopathically racist ma'af, to remember how sleep is once you have awakened from dreams full of blissful ignorance, is to correctly align oneself with revolution in the most necessarily extreme ways. I align myself with revolution. So this revolutionary act of motherhood is divine. It's incomparable to anything else in existence. There is nothing comparable to motherhood. The process of creating and cultivating life in the womb space, going through the trimesters in which life goes from the unseen world to the seen world, the grand connector, the grand unifier between the seen and the unseen world is the African woman. So you see these African women here, our daughters, our sisters, our nieces, our cousins, our wives, our mothers, our revolutionary warrior comrades in the struggle for African liberation. Mother, she is. We're speaking about mother. We're speaking about past mother, present mother, and future mother. Honor thy mother. Honor thy mother. So you see Mama Ya, Mama Equate. We see Mama Keisha right here. They're among the living. They're among the living. Warriors, 10 toes down. Warriors for our people. We come from mothers that are warriors of our people. We need to be a reminder. We need to be proper ambassadors. We need to be proper protectors. We need to be proper cultivators. We need to be proper uplifters of the God from which we come from. That womb space. That is our space of life coming into the physical world. Leaving the ancestral womb space to manifest in the physical world through the physical, spiritual womb space. The womb space of mother that allows us the space of cultivating, the space of development, the growth and development of God in the womb space, from the thought space to the womb space, from that divine, intelligent, unseen force space into the force space that is seen and heard upon inception into the physical world, the womb space. The doorway between life and death. The evidence of work in the unseen. And the manifester of things, all things that are seen in the physical world. It says love makes your soul crawl out from its hiding space. Our women are our healers. And because of this divine quality, they are abused. Who heals the healer? Mother bearing the burden of life, bearing the brunt force of life coming into the physical world. From the space of divine intelligence, from the space of the womb of the Egun, of the space of our ancestral space, everything coming into the physical world, being healed, being nurtured, being cultivated, being uplifted, being honored. That comes with a sacrifice. Our women are our healers, and because of this divine quality, they are abused. In reality, with control over others and unrestrained emotional, physical, and verbal violence against others is an obvious indicator of that control. Those who move with their hearts become the easiest and most desired victims for unself-confident predators. So when you're used to only receiving healing and not reciprocating healing, you abuse the healer. And the process of healing hurts. Look at these healers, look at these warriors, look at these pictorial images of mother, of African motherhood, of African revolutionary and African retributionary excellence on the screen. Do you see Dr. Betty Shabazz, peace and blessings be upon her? Do you see Queen Mother Sister Claire Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon her? Do you see Amy Jacques Garvey, peace and blessings be upon her? Do you see Lillian Gregory, peace and blessings be upon her and her family? Her still in the world of the living. You see her. Do you know her? Do you know her story? Do you see Queen Mother Mama Mamie Till, peace and blessings be upon her and her family? Do you see the warrior? Queen Mother Winnie Mandela, peace and blessings be upon her. Do you see these African women, these mothers of God, who gave up their lives, for their stories to never be told properly, to not be given the reverential awe that they are due? Do we understand what's going on? Do we truly know who we have in our midst? Do we truly know our responsibility for the sacrifices that were made to bring life into the physical world? To repeat life, to be life affirming. Do we understand their sacrifices? Do we understand Mama Ya's sacrifice? Do we understand Mama Equatia's sacrifice? Do we understand Mama Keisha's sacrifice? I don't think we do. I don't think we do. So these stories are never told properly. This is why this platform exists in this space, to honor those known and unknown, to tell the story of their sacrifice, to celebrate and honor them with distinction. I could take any one of these African warrior gods and speak about them at length, separately. Ackerman House, Ackerman Institute, Pan-African Connection. Sister Keisha with her work in New York, pounding the pavement, working with our youth, working with our families out in the community, risking her life. We don't know their stories. We don't know their sacrifice. We see our Queen Mother, Dr. Betty Shabazz, here with her children. Do we know the 32 years after El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, Brother Omar Wali, affectionately known to the world as Brother Malcolm X? Do we know her sacrifice? Do we know her story? Do we know that 32 years? Do we understand the encroachment by the United States government seeking to break up her household, seeking to take away her children? Do we know the reformation of our Queen Mother, who was abused at home and brought into foster care, where she was a gift and a blessing to those parents who brought her in, who taught her history, who prepared her to be a mother, who prepared her to be a healer? Do we know of her story and her sacrifice? Do we know that she was the healer for Malcolm, who was broken by the system, broken by being ripped apart and torn apart, his family being separated, and how that led into criminality and how that led into self-hatred, and how he was brought back from that space, and how he existed in a society that hated him. She was a healer for him. She put him back together. And he imbued her with a fire of understanding how to deal with his enemies and her enemies, and enemies to the family in her absence. Do we know her story? Do we know her sacrifice? Do we know Sister Clara Muhammad's story? Her sacrifice? Do we know that there would be no lost and found nation of Islam without Sister Clara Muhammad? It was Sister Clara Muhammad who told her husband, Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, that she met a man. A man came to their home one day in Detroit, peddling silks. She said, I met a man today. He came by the house and he's speaking. You need to go see that man. Sister Clara told the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, you need to go see that man. So the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad went to go see that man because this African God that was by his side said, you need to go see that man. There is no lost and found nation in Islam. There is no nation of Islam without Sister Clara. The universities of Islam, the schools and the businesses and all that, there's not. They don't exist without Sister Clara. Why don't we know this? Why don't we know this? For the Universal Negro Improvement Association, African Communities League in America doesn't exist without Amy Jacques Garvey. After these men departed, from the physical world, it was these sisters, it was these African gods, it was these divine God warriors who continued on the legacy. It was Mother who continued on. Queen Mary, after the Haitian Revolution, after Jean-Jacques Dessalines' transition, she carried on the mission. Lillian Gregory, we know her name from our Baba Dick Gregory, peace and blessings be upon him. Do we know her sacrifice? Do we know her sacrifice? Do we know her story? Do we know what she sacrificed to raise those children? To get critical information from overseas back to us so we would know it? We don't know. We don't know. Mama Mamie Till, do we know her story? Do we know her sacrifice? We wouldn't know Emmett Till's story. The world wouldn't know Emmett Till's story if this warrior did not tell the story to the world, didn't face death threats, didn't face opposition, didn't fight. This mother, like the mother of Tamir Rice, this mother, like the mother of Tamir Rice, do we know Mamie Till's story? Do we know her sacrifice? And finally, way down in Azania, do we know this revolutionary story? Do we know this retributionary story? Do we know Winnie Mandela's story? Do we know her sacrifice? Do we know her fighting spirit? Do we know what she was subjected to? Do we know what she survived? Honor thy mother. That's a commandment. That's an African commandment. That's a guiding principle. Honor thy mother. Honor thy mother. Are we honoring our mother? Are we honoring the mother of God? Are we honoring the womb space from whence we came? Or are we cutting off relations with the wombs that bore us, the wombs that gave us life? Are we not protective of the womb space? Are we not protective of our healers? Are we abusing our healers? Do we know the story of Georgia Brown, the mother of George and Jonathan Jackson? Can we feel her pain, losing her husband and burying two of her sons? Do we know that pain? Do we know that sacrifice? Expectedly often, such domination is absolute. Yoruba are the ultimate dominators, masters in the art of sadistic manipulation. Are we engaged in sadistic manipulation when it comes to the African woman? Are we in this space where we have become contrary? Are we going to continue to betray African women? Are we going to continue to betray God? Historically, in response to their asilic imperatives, they have made a cultural and social habit of ranking personal prestige and power based on who mostly efficiently dominates others among their group and others while remaining the least victimized and controlled. Being the most targeted by this violence, African women have tried to protect their souls by hiding their hearts behind the shields of indifference. They are living lives of apathy and needlessness as they place an inordinate amount of energy into suppressing their femininity and the nurturing talents no one else possesses so well. These African gods have to shrink themselves before the world. And then they get in relationships with African men, so called, and have to shrink them further in our space. So they have to get it from the enemy who preys on them. And whatever left over, these predators that are amongst us in black skin, prey on what's left. We must remember to honor thy mother. Yet femininity is beauty, and beauty is hard to hide. Our women's essence as spiritual beings who exist to heal find ways to reveal itself even in the darkness of evil places full of malevolent people who have no love of life. This is what we have been reduced to. We have no love for life. And she is life affirming. She is mother of all living. She is where all life emanates from. So we have no love for life, excuse me. Then we have no love for her. She is life. She is love. So even though they are physically the most beautiful to ever walk this earth, their beauty is not the only reason Yorugan males want to possess them. So now we got folks in black skin calling God their most prized possession. So they seek to possess her. I don't know of the mind frame that exists in that space to hear some man call my mother a possession or his property. To see where your head would be before I could even get to you, if there was a space where I could get to you. All of this secondary but most necessary. All of this colonial slave shit we got going on. Just possession, property, servitude, mastership. African men must make this a non-option. African men must make this a non-option. African men must make this a non-option. You could tell me that you love Malcolm. You could tell me that you love Dr. Khaled. You could tell me that you love the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey. You could tell me that you're a follower of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. If I don't see you treating the African woman well, that's a lie. Malcolm said, we will kill you for our woman. We will kill you for our woman. I don't see that fervor anymore. I don't see that being translated to the young African men. I don't see that happening in the family dynamic. I don't see the womb space being honored. I see the catastrophe that comes along with the Western influence in the mind of God. God no longer gives birth to God. God is giving birth to babies, and babies should be a choice whether they live or die. African men must make this a non-option. We must give them the healing love they deserve and make them know their immeasurable value to us. The immeasurable value to us. Not with talk only, in action. We must give them the healing love they deserve. That's called reciprocity. And make them know their immeasurable value to us. If they are harmed, if they're hurting, who heals them? If they're wrong, who vindicates them? Who fights for the justice of the African woman? Honor thy mother. We honor you, African woman. We honor you, African God. We honor you, mother of all living, and we will kill your enemies. Internal and external, foreign and domestic. We know that a nation can rise no higher than you. We know that you are the mother of the nation. We know that you are the mother of God. We know that you are God. So to my mother, to the African woman, to God herself, we honor you, and we will never cut off relations with the wombs that bore us. We will honor you, we will protect you, and we will destroy whomever opposes you, wherever we find them. So I wanted to end it right there. Honor thy mother. You don't know the pain. You don't know the sacrifice. You don't know the hell. You don't know how close to death our mothers go through to bring life into the physical world and also to sustain life on a daily, on a regular in the physical world. You got no clue. We love you. We honor your sacrifice. We cherish every moment, every breath that you take. Mother God.
Praise Nat Turner, glory to Garvey, and long live the spirit of the Honorable Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad.
Oh, say, can you see white folks oppressing me as they spew for their lives and plan my people's demise, whose broad stripes and bright stars represent all the scars inflicted upon our race, a great people displaced. Now the time has come for the revolution as we march through the night and take all of their lives. Garvey land and red and black and green, African flag wave. When we win the victory, forever
Yeah. Now we gonna tell them. Night in front. We tell them like this, yo. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a African. Yeah, y'all like that? No more. This man's mind is open. I'm an African. I'm a African. I'm an African. I'm a. Let's get
And
back
that
to the
motive
gritty
is best developed by recognizing the common enemy.